I am David Englert, candidate for Sodus Town Supervisor, and I am a complex problem solver. That is a trait highly desired in a town supervisor, especially if you want to see improvements in your town and in your county. In my first year as mayor of our fair village, I spent a lot of time talking about drainage. We had a drainage emergency going on at the southern end of the village, and a lot of time and resources were dedicated to solving that. And one day, when it was raining, a gentleman from Union Street stopped into the office and talked to Karen. And he told her that he had a problem in his yard. That for 20 years or more, every time it rained, his yard flooded. And he heard a lot of talk about drainage, and he thought that his yard deserved some attention too. Now, I happened to be home from work that day, and Karen called me and gave me the gentleman's name and address, and I went down and paid him a visit. When I got there, I was shocked. I was expecting to find a little bit of water here or there, but what I found was that this lawn was buried in 2 to 4 inches of water. This lawn was under 2 to 4 inches of water. It was rolling into this garage. It was rolling into this garage. There was more water here than there should have been. That was obvious. The resident pinpointed the problem. He said that this pipe bubbled up every time it rained. So the first things we did was we checked our records, and of course, unfortunately, there were no written records of the drainage system in this neighborhood. Most people that worked for the village 50, 60 years ago kept all their knowledge in their head, and when they retired, they took it with them. The homeowner did know, however, that a drainage line, a village drainage line, was installed at this point that ran just about due south. If you follow a north-south line from that pipe, you're going to run straight into that sycamore tree. The homeowner was sure that the drainage line ran under that sycamore tree and that the roots of that giant tree were in fact blocking the line. I did some measurements, I walked all around the village, and I discovered that the source of this line in the ground was here, behind the post office on Main Street. All of the water from this area is collected into this catch basin here and then run by pipe practically due north under Smith Street to that little pipe on Union Street without any breaks or any cleanouts on the way. And that's about a 20-foot fall from here to Union Street. So it's no wonder that when the water farther down the line hit an obstruction, that it backed up and bubbled out with such zest into that gentleman's yard. So eventually we were able to muster the resources to investigate this pipe. We got equipment to look around, and we discovered that there was no pipe that came from this going north. In fact, the drainage at this part of Union Street runs east-west. Somehow the water running east-west here had to go across Union Street to a ditch system and a pipe system that runs parallel east-west to the railroad track and eventually across 104 and out to the lake. But we didn't know where any of these pipes were. We contracted with a company who had cameras that could access the storm sewer. The only thing that we could see, other than that giant sycamore tree that we did not want to remove and a dead pine tree in the backyard of one of the houses, was a hole in the ground where an old pipe had rotted through. So in desperation one day, the contractor with the camera happened to be at the sewer plant doing some work for us. So I asked them if they could please spare about an hour and come down and run that line one more time. And again, they ran the east-west line parallel to the railroad track as far as they could until they ran into some debris in the line and couldn't go any further. But at the very limit of that camera that day, we saw what might have been a shadow of another opening in the pipe. So we took the measurements from the camera and measured it out on the ground, and that ended up lining up with that dead pine tree in the backyard. So we got our metal detectors out and we scanned the whole area looking for pipe, and we couldn't find anything. So finally I said to the crew, get some shovels and dig. And they did, and we found a clay pipe. No wonder the metal detectors couldn't find it. The pipe that ran from Union Street to the railroad track was clay, and it had collapsed right under that pine tree. The pine tree roots had gotten into it, knotted up, blocked off the flow of water, and eventually they drowned the tree. We removed the tree, replaced the section of pipe that had been damaged, and lo and behold, the next time it rained, instead of water bubbling up out of that cover, this gentleman's lawn did not flood. And it has not flooded for the better part of a year since we did that work. If we hadn't been persistent, if I hadn't insisted that we come back time after time after time, this neighborhood would still be experiencing flooding each and every time it rains. So the solution to this problem turned out to be very straightforward and kind of absurdly simple once you knew the answers. But the point is, when this gentleman came to me desperate for help, I was not the first village mayor that he had spoken to. I was not the second village mayor he had spoken to. I was the fourth village mayor that this gentleman had come to speak to about this particular problem. I was the first one to listen carefully to discover what was actually going on and to make it better. This is what the people of this village get from me every second of every day. I give 100%. I listen carefully. I don't care who you are. If you come to me and you have a problem and the village is able to help you, we will do that in the best way possible. As town supervisor, you can expect no less from me. I will spend every waking moment working hard for you, finding solutions to our problems, moving this community, this county, this town, and our villages all together forward. I appreciate your support, and I look forward to being your next town supervisor. Thank you very much.